She walked in like she owned the place. Designer heels clicking against marble, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, phone in one hand, and what looked like a slim black wallet in the other. Vivian Torres wasn't just confident. She was daring the world to challenge her. And when she flashed that taser at Judge Caprio, right there in open court, she thought she'd found the ultimate power move. The kind that would make headlines, prove her point, force everyone to see things her way. But what Judge Caprio did next didn't just disarm her plan. It exposed every lie she'd built her case on and turned her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. Before we show you how justice unfolded in real time, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment from All Rise. And drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from, because what you're about to witness is the moment entitlement met accountability and lost. The morning docket was routine. 3 traffic violations, a noise complaint from a college party that got out of hand, and an elderly woman contesting a parking ticket she swore was issued while she was still feeding the meter. Judge Caprio had seen it all before. The usual Tuesday rhythm. Papers shuffling, attorneys whispering strategy, the bailiff adjusting his belt out of habit more than necessity. Then the clerk called it. Case number 6204, City of Providence versus Vivian Torres. Battery, destruction of property, and unlawful intimidation. The room didn't gasp, not yet, but something shifted in the air. A few regulars in the gallery sat up straighter. One attorney closed his laptop. Even the stenographer paused, fingers hovering, like her instincts knew this one would be different. The doors opened, and in walked Vivian Torres. Mid-30s, athletic build, hair pulled back tight in a ponytail that screamed control freak. She wore a fitted blazer over yoga pants and pristine white sneakers that probably cost more than most people's rent. In her left hand, her phone. In her right, a sleek black case with gold trim that caught the light. She didn't look nervous. She looked annoyed, like she'd been inconvenienced, like this whole thing was beneath her. Behind her trailed Officer Mendez, a veteran cop who looked like he'd aged 5 years just escorting her from the holding area. He was sweating. It was only 9:15 in the morning. Vivian didn't acknowledge Judge Caprio. Not really. Just a quick glance, a flicker of assessment, and then her eyes moved past him like he was furniture. She sat down at the defendant's table, crossed her legs, and set the black case on the table in front of her like it was a trophy. Judge Caprio opened the file, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "Miss Torres," he began, his voice calm and even. "You've been charged with battery on a neighbor, destruction of property, and unlawful intimidation. How do you plead?" Vivian leaned toward the microphone, not bothering to stand. "Not guilty, obviously. And I'd like to file a countersuit for emotional distress and harassment." The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Diana Flores, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Caprio closed the folder gently. "We'll address your charges first, Miss Torres. Then we can discuss any counterclaims you believe are valid. Do you have representation?" Vivian waved a hand dismissively. "I represent myself. I'm more than capable. I have a degree in communications, and I know my rights better than most lawyers." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Someone coughed. Another person shifted in their seat. Caprio didn't react. He simply nodded. "Very well. Miss Flores, please present the state's case." Diana Flores stood, straightening her blazer. "Your Honor, on the evening of October 14th, the defendant confronted her neighbor, Mrs. Helen Pritchard, age 72, over a dispute involving a shared driveway. When Mrs. Pritchard asked Miss Torres to move her vehicle, which was blocking access, The defendant became verbally abusive, shoved Mrs. Pritchard against her own garage door, and then proceeded to key Mrs. Pritchard's car, causing over $3,000 in damage. Vivian snorted. "That's her story." Caprio raised a hand. "Miss Torres, you'll have your turn. Please let counsel finish." Flores continued. "We have ring camera footage from 2 neighboring homes, both showing the incident clearly. We also have medical documentation of bruising on Mrs. Pritchard's shoulder and arm, consistent with being shoved. And we have 3 independent witnesses who heard the defendant threaten Mrs. Pritchard, saying, and I quote, 'Touch my car again, and I'll make you regret it.'" Vivian rolled her eyes so dramatically it was almost theatrical. "She's a busybody who's been trying to control the neighborhood for years. I was defending my property." "That's not a crime." Caprio turned slightly in his chair. "We'll review the evidence. Ms. Torres, Officer Mendez, you responded to the scene?" The officer stood, walking to the witness stand with measured steps. "Yes, Your Honor. I arrived at approximately 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Pritchard was visibly shaken, crying, holding her arm. Her car had fresh scratch marks along the driver's side, deep enough to reach the metal. And what was Miss Torres doing when you arrived?" "She was standing in her driveway, filming Mrs. Pritchard on her phone, and laughing." Vivian shot up from her seat. "I was documenting her hysteria for my protection." "That's not illegal." Caprio's voice remained steady but firm. "Miss Torres, sit down. You will not interrupt testimony again." Vivian sat, but slowly, with a smirk that told everyone she didn't respect the instruction. Officer Mendez continued. "When I asked Miss Torres what happened, she said, and I'm quoting from my report, 'The old lady put her hands on my car, so I put my hands on her.'" Problem solved. The courtroom went silent. Even the air felt heavier. Caprio looked at Vivian over his glasses. "Is that accurate, Miss Torres? Did you say that to Officer Mendez?" Vivian shrugged. "I might have. I was upset. She violated my space first." "Your Honor," Flores interjected, "we'd like to play the ring camera footage." Caprio nodded. "Proceed." The bailiff rolled in a monitor. The screen flickered to life, showing a suburban driveway at dusk. An elderly woman, small and frail, walked slowly toward a black SUV parked diagonally across a shared driveway entrance. She knocked gently on the driver's side window. No response. She waited, then turned to leave. That's when Vivian appeared from the side of the frame, moving fast, aggressive. The footage had no audio, but her body language screamed rage. She pointed at Mrs. Pritchard, jabbed her finger toward the older woman's chest. Mrs. Pritchard stepped back, hands raised in a calming gesture. Vivian didn't calm. She shoved, hard. Mrs. Pritchard stumbled backward, hit the garage door, clutched her arm. Vivian pulled something from her pocket. A key. And methodically, deliberately, dragged it along the side of Mrs. Pritchard's sedan. Front to back. Deep. Vicious. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. When the video ended, no one moved. Caprio let the silence sit for a moment. Then he turned to Vivian. "Miss Torres, what do you have to say about what we just saw?" Vivian sat forward, completely unbothered. "She provoked me. She's been harassing me for months. This was self-defense." "Self-defense," Caprio repeated slowly, "against a 72-year-old woman who knocked on your car window." Vivian's jaw tightened. "Yes, emotional self-defense. She makes me feel unsafe in my own home." "Your Honor," Flores said, standing again, "we'd also like to introduce a history of complaints filed by Miss Torres against multiple neighbors over the past 18 months. 11 complaints total, all claiming harassment, intimidation, or emotional abuse. In every case, the complaints were found to be without merit. Vivian stood abruptly, slamming her hand on the table. That's because no one takes women seriously when they say they feel threatened. Caprio's gaze sharpened. Miss Torres, I've warned you twice. Sit down and remain seated, or you will be held in contempt. Vivian sat, but she didn't stay quiet. You're just like the rest of them. You don't care about victims. You protect the system. And that's when she reached for the black case on the table. Her fingers moved quickly, flipping it open. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a compact stun device. Not disguised, fully visible. She lifted it out, holding it up like a piece of evidence in her own defense. This, she said loudly, is why I need protection. Because people like her, people like you, think they can intimidate me. The bailiff's hand shot to his belt. Another deputy stepped forward from the side door. Caprio didn't flinch. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Miss Torres, put that down. Now. Vivian stood, holding the taser higher. No, you need to see this. You need to understand that I have a right to feel safe. Officer Mendez moved toward her slowly, hands visible, voice low. Vivian, let's not make this worse. Put it on the table. She spun toward him, taser raised. Don't come closer. I know what you're trying to do. You want to make me look crazy. You want to make me the bad guy. But I'm not. I'm the victim here. Caprio leaned forward slightly, his tone unchanged. No one is calling you crazy, Miss Torres, but you are holding a weapon in a courtroom. That is a crime, and it will not help your case. Vivian's hand trembled, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the high of finally being the center of attention in the way she wanted. This is what you do to women who stand up for themselves. You silence us. You arrest us. You make us out to be the problem. Her thumb moved toward the activation button, and that's when Judge Caprio did something no one expected. He stood, slowly, calmly, and he took off his glasses. He set them on the bench, folded his hands, and looked directly at Vivian. Not with anger, not with fear, with something far more powerful. Disappointment. Miss Torres, he said quietly, the room so silent you could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. I've sat on this bench for more than 30 years. I've seen people at their worst. I've seen desperation. I've seen rage. I've seen fear so real it made people do things they never thought they were capable of. He paused. But what you're holding right now isn't fear. It's control. And you've mistaken the two for so long. You don't know the difference anymore. Vivian blinked. The taser wavered slightly. You don't know me, she said, but her voice cracked. Caprio continued. You're right, I don't. But I know what I've seen today. I've seen you shove an elderly woman. I've seen you vandalize her property. I've seen you laugh while she cried. And now I'm watching you threaten this court with a weapon, because you believe that if you scare people enough, you'll get what you want. He stepped down from the bench, slowly. The bailiffs tensed, but he raised a hand, signaling them to wait. He walked toward her. Not close, just close enough that she had to look at him. You want to feel powerful, he said. I understand that. But power isn't in your hand right now. It's not in that device. Real power is in knowing when to stop. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Not remorse. Frustration. You don't understand what it's like. To feel invisible. To be dismissed. To have people act like you don't matter. Caprio nodded. You're right. I don't know your life, but I do know this. The moment you pointed that device at me, you proved that you're not afraid. You're angry, and anger without accountability is just cruelty. He extended his hand. Give it to me, Vivian. This ends now, one way or another. For 10 seconds, no one breathed. Vivian looked at the taser, then at Caprio, then at the courtroom full of people staring at her, and slowly her hand lowered. She set the taser on the table, stepped back, and covered her face with her hands. Officer Mendez moved in immediately, securing the device. Another deputy gently placed handcuffs on Vivian's wrists. She didn't resist. She just kept repeating, I was scared. I was so scared. Caprio returned to the bench. The record will reflect that the defendant produced and brandished a stun device in open court. That constitutes assault, contempt, and obstruction of justice. He paused. Miss Torres, you came here today hoping to be heard, and you were. But what you said with your actions was louder than anything you could have said with words. Vivian looked up, mascara streaking her face. What happens now? Caprio leaned back. Now, you face the consequences. Not because you're a woman, not because you're outspoken, but because you hurt someone. And when given the chance to take responsibility, you chose intimidation instead. He opened a new file. I'm sentencing you to 60 days in county jail, suspended pending completion of anger management counseling and a psychiatric evaluation. You will pay full restitution to Mrs. Pritchard for vehicle damages and medical costs. You will complete 100 hours of community service. And you are prohibited from any contact with Mrs. Pritchard or any resident of Maple Grove Drive for a period of 2 years. Vivian's lawyer, a young public defender who had stayed silent the whole time, finally spoke. Your Honor, my client clearly needs help. This was a cry for attention. Caprio nodded. I agree. That's why she's getting help. But it's also a crime. And crimes have consequences. Vivian was led out, still crying, still insisting she was the victim. The courtroom remained silent until the door closed behind her. Then, slowly, the tension released. Someone coughed. Papers shuffled. Life resumed. But Judge Caprio stayed seated for a long moment, staring at the taser now sealed in an evidence bag. Then he looked up at the gallery. Let me say something, he began, and everyone stilled again. We live in a time where everyone wants to be heard. And they should be. Every voice matters, but a voice raised in anger, backed by a weapon, demanding submission. That's not advocacy. That's tyranny. He stood. If you feel invisible, speak. If you feel wronged, seek justice. But the moment you try to force others into fear to validate your pain, you've lost the moral high ground, and you will lose in this court. Every time. He picked up his gavel. Case dismissed. Court is in recess. The gavel struck once. Clean, final. And as people filed out, one woman, an older lady in the second row, stopped at the door and whispered to her companion, he didn't even flinch. That's real strength. By that evening, the footage had leaked. Someone in the gallery had recorded the moment on their phone. Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. The moment Vivian pulled the taser. The moment Caprio stood. The moment he walked toward her. Unarmed. Unafraid. The comments poured in. This man is a legend. He de-escalated without yelling. That's leadership, She really thought playing victim would work. Judge said, "Nope." But what resonated most was a clip of his final words. A voice raised in anger, backed by a weapon, demanding submission. That's not advocacy, that's tyranny. It was shared by activists, teachers, parents, and people who'd never watched a courtroom video in their lives. Because it wasn't just about Vivian Torres. It was about a culture, a moment, a line in the sand. And Judge Caprio had drawn it with nothing but calm, clarity, and courage. Vivian Torres spent 3 days in county holding before being released, pending her evaluation. Her social media accounts, once full of rants about neighborhood injustice, went dark. Her lawyer issued a statement. Ms. Torres is seeking help and regrets her actions. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither did Maple Grove Drive. Mrs. Pritchard, the elderly neighbor, gave one interview to the local news. "All I did was ask her to move her car," she said softly. "I never wanted this. I just wanted peace." When asked if she forgave Vivian, she paused. "I hope she finds it. Peace, I mean, because whatever she was fighting, it wasn't me." As for Judge Caprio, he returned to his chambers that evening, removed his robe, and sat at his desk. The taser, now logged as evidence, sat in a locker 2 floors down. But the moment lingered. He pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote one line. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear justify harm." He underlined it twice. Then he filed it away with all the others. Years of moments, years of choices, years of holding the line. And when he finally left the courthouse that night, the city lights reflecting off the marble steps, he felt the weight of it all. Not the burden, the responsibility. To be calm when others were chaos. To be steady when others were storm. To be the line that said, "No further." That's justice. Not loud, not viral, just lasting. And if you're still watching, you just witnessed what real authority looks like. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It just stands. So here's the question we want you to answer. Do you think Judge Caprio made the right call? Should Vivian have faced harsher consequences, or did she need help more than punishment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to see what real strength looks like. And don't forget to subscribe to All Rise and turn on notifications, because tomorrow's story is even more unbelievable. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. Tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Now go watch the next video on your screen. Another courtroom twist is waiting for you. This story is a work of fiction created for storytelling and educational purposes. All characters and events are fictional.